There's a word we've all been taught to recognize immediately: terrorism. Violence used to shape politics, and fear used to control outcomes. And the lines we're told should never be crossed. And when it comes from certain groups, we don't hesitate to call it exactly that. But when those same outcomes come from governments, we call it strategy, we call it defense, and we call it necessary. So what actually separates the two? Because right now we're being told a very simple story about the war in Iran, that it was justified, that it was inevitable, and that it was the right move. But when you start looking at what was actually said on record by the people in power, the story starts to kind of crack. So the official narrative says this was a response, a necessary move, but listen to this clip of Marco Rubio.
The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. And in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act. Going back
In that clip, Rubio makes it clear. The United States believed Israel was going to act. Not might, not could, but was going to. And that matters, because if decisions are being made based on what another country is expected to do, that changes the entire context. Were we responding to a threat or responding to an expectation? Because those are two very different things. And once you start asking that question, the rest of the narrative becomes a lot harder to take at face value. Now, if this was just one comment, you could ignore it. But it's not. There's a pattern in how this relationship is talked about. You have to listen. Let's start with the interview with Ted Cruz speaking with Tucker Carlson.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of it, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what... Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
And so is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
In that exchange, Cruz is pressed directly on U.S. support for Israel. But instead of framing it as conditional, it comes across almost as automatic, expected, almost unquestionable, And that matters because it's not just about what's being said, it's about what's not being questioned. Now here's Lindsey Graham.
Israel is our friend. They're the most reliable friend we have in the Mideast. They're a democracy, surrounded by people who would cut their throats if they could. This is not a hard choice if you're an American. It's not a hard choice if you're a Christian. A word of warning. If America pulls the plug on Israel, God will pull the plug on us. And we're not going to let that happen. So I just want to end with this thought that President Trump has stood with Israel at the most difficult time since its founding. October the 7th was an effort to destroy the state of Israel, the largest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust. And here we are almost 2 years later, and Israel's the bad guy. That's ridiculous. Israel is not.
And to quote, "If America pulls the plug on Israel, God will pull the plug on the United States." That's not strategy. That's belief. That's tying the fate of one country directly to another. So now the question becomes, at what point does support become influence? And at what point does alliance become alignment? Because when you hear this kind of language consistently across different people and across different settings, it really stops sounding like policy and sounds like something way deeper. Now, here's where everything starts to collide. Because the same leadership and the same movement has been built on a very specific promise. No new wars.
We'll stay around the country for 15 years, just bomb the hell out of everybody, make everybody miserable. Nobody knows why we're there, the wars that never end. These endless wars that we've been in, I've gotten us out of so many. We don't want to get into wars. We're tired of fighting. I'm the only president in the last 84 years that didn't start a war. Under Trump, we will have no more wars. No more wars. No more wars. We will have prosperity and peace. We will have prosperity and we will have peace. Remember, I'm the president of peace. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. He's going to start a war. I said, no. My rhetoric is going to keep us out of wars. And that's what happened. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. I believe that he will attack Iran sometime prior to the election because he thinks that's the only way he can get elected. Isn't it pathetic?
End the wars. Don't start new ones. Put America first. That was the message, and that was the appeal. But now...
Why did you use such vulgar language in that Truth Social post?
Only to make my point. I think you've heard it before.
What do you say to Americans who are not a fan of the war?
They're foolish because the war's about one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Had we not broken the Barack Hussein Obama agreement, you know what I'm talking about, the Iran nuclear deal. This is years ago, my first term. You would have had a total, Israel would have been gone. Extinguished. Israel would have been wiped off the face of the earth, and the entire Middle East would have been, at a minimum, in big trouble.
Critics of the war, people questioning what's happening, being dismissed as foolish. When did questioning war become something to shut down instead of something to consider? Because those two positions don't sit comfortably together at all. On one hand, you have no new wars, but on the other, if you question this war, you're wrong. That's not just political contradiction, that's a shift in how people are expected to think. Because if the expectation is to support the decision no matter what, then the conversation is already over before it even started. And if you think this doesn't affect you, it does. Because wars don't just happen overseas, they come back. Every escalation affects oil markets, gas prices rise. Transportation costs increase. Groceries go up. But not all at once, but over time. It's not just politicians feeling that first. It's everyday people. And then there's spending. War isn't cheap. Military operations, aid, logistics, it all comes with a price. And that money comes from the same system that funds everything else. So what gets prioritized and what gets pushed aside? And then there's risk, because once involvement increases, it rarely stops there. More escalation, more pressure, and more commitment. History shows that. So this isn't just about what's happening overseas. It's about what it turns into here, at home, in cost, in policy, and in risk. So when you step back and look at everything together, this isn't just about one war. It's how it's explained, how it's framed, and how little room there is to question it. Because we've seen expectations shaping the decisions, unwavering language from our leadership, and a promise of no new wars shifting into defending one, and real consequences that don't just stay overseas. So the real question isn't just what's happening, it's are we given the full picture, or just the version we're supposed to accept? Because questioning shouldn't be discouraged, it should be expected. And once questioning becomes something you're not supposed to do, that's when the conversation ends. And when that conversation ends, everything else gets decided for you. That's it for this episode. Thank you guys for all the comments and all the insight. And I know I say this at the end of every episode, but I truly do mean it. There's a Facebook page. We do polls there for every episode. Next episode will either be Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah, that's all I got. Peace.